What's going on, everybody? The Original Mako back with another Gunfire Reborn tier list, and of course, back at it again with the Remnants. We've already made one Remnant tier list video, but obviously there's been some new Remnants, some changes, so we are going to be doing another one, an updated version of it. So that's what we're going to do today. Before we get into it, be sure you check the links down below, as always. If you want to see me mess with these Remnants live, check out the Twitch link down below. Next week, I'm actually going to be streaming live on Twitch and YouTube at the same time. So you can tune in right here at YouTube 4 or 5 days a week. Typically, it's about 4, maybe 5 if we're lucky. Either way, check it out. I'd really appreciate it. Also, be sure to check out the member link down below as well. Take you to the member page where you can become a YouTube member today. It helps out the channel a ton. If you've been enjoying the content, it's just a way to help support. As you can see on screen, we have a list of our members here. I can't thank you guys enough for the extra support. It means a ton, helps the channel out a lot, and I really do appreciate it. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get into the tier list video. Now, obviously, we just have these little icons here. So what I'm going to be doing is going through each one. We're going to start with all of the non-exclusive ones first. I'm going to overlay a description. I'm going to talk about it, read it, and overlay it on the screen so you guys can see it. And then place it in our rankings. So first up, we have a good man. I mean, we have a lot of these to get through. So a good man, reviving or being revived grants you plus 2% per second health recovery, plus 5% movement speed, and plus 30% weapon and skill damage. You can get up to 10 stacks, and it resets everything at a starting stage. So this is only available in multiplayer. As somebody who does not really play multiplayer very often, I'm going to keep it a stack with you. I don't have a lot of experience with this scroll, but I'm going to judge it the way I'm going to judge a lot of these. Most of these remnants are like really, really important parts of a certain build. Like, you want to have these for a specific build that you're in your mind you're doing, right? Like, something that can just help you achieve higher damage numbers or achieve that fun synergy you want to try. This one doesn't really do that, but I feel like in terms of helping win, it's fine. I mean, you can get up to, if you're at 10 stacks, it's plus 10% health recovery per second, 50% movement speed, and 150% weapon and skill damage. So it's not bad per se, but I'm going to put it in C. I don't know. That's just where I think it would go, in my opinion. So C for that one. Next up, we have, like I said, I'm doing all of the like light blue ones first because those are the ones that are available to everybody. So next up, we have Copycat. So upon killing or assisting in killing an enhanced monster, you obtain their enhanced effects, which last for some time. Different enhanced effects will be applied at the same time, while the same effect will be stacked. You can get up to 3 stacks, and it'll refresh every time you kill an enemy that has that enhanced effect. So let's read these effects because there's a lot. So each one lasts 60 seconds with the exception of Immortal, which will only last 15. But for the fire, lightning, and corrosive effects, you get plus 50% specified elemental damage, guaranteed specified elemental effect, which is great. Powerful, dedicative, and inherited, you get plus 50% damage. Healing/bleed, you recover 5% health per second. Defensive/armored, minus 20% damage taken. Immortal, your health is fixed at 1 if you were to take lethal damage. Resistive, gain immunity to any elemental effect. Note, this will disable elemental bonuses like Painkiller or the shards. If it's a shielding enemy, you get plus 50% max shield or armor. If it's aggressive, minus 50% primary skill cooldown. If it's agile, plus 50% movement speed. If it's robust, plus 50% max health. And if it's loyal, cloning, or cloned, there are no extra benefits. Boo! I'm sure they'll have them in there at some point. Anyways, here's my thoughts on Copycat. It's fantastic. This isn't going to be something you're making a build around, but it is so good. As somebody who plays at the highest levels at Reincarnation 8, almost every single enemy is enhanced in some way, which means every single enemy is giving you a bonus. And there's a lot of really good bonuses that can stack and are refreshed. So for the majority of the game, you're just going to have these insane bonuses going, which is super, super useful in all sorts of scenarios. So this isn't something you're going to be building a run around necessarily. but it is really, really, really good. I'm going to put it A tier. It could maybe be B just because, like I said, you're not really building around it, but it is just so good for all sorts of scenarios. So A tier for Copycat. Next up, we have Craftsman's Inheritor. You can upgrade, reforge, etch, and reroll weapons for free, but you can only own up to 20 non-cursed scrolls. So, this one's interesting because I think this can be good in a lot of runs. I mean, being able to upgrade, reforge, etch, I mean, all of this stuff for free is super, super useful. If you're doing a weapon build, like you're like, you want to find a really cool weapon, or you're doing a monkey with a weapon build and you want to optimize it as best as possible, then this is fantastic. But only being able to have 20 non-cursed scrolls is detrimental late game. It's just detrimental. You can't do it. So I don't think most of the time this is going to be worth it. Now, if you've already got like 5 or 6 scrolls that are pivotal to your build and you're like, I don't really need these extra scrolls, it's just extra, then maybe it'll be worth it. But most of the time, it's just not super convenient only being able to have 20 non-cursed scrolls. So I'm going to put this in C tier, ahead of a good man, but still in C tier. Next up, we have Endless Assault, and you gain a secondary skill used every 3 seconds, and your secondary skill capacity gets doubled. This is useful for a couple of builds, but overall, I mean, it's not like this is really pivotal to any builds. Once again, maybe the monkey this is really good for, or the dog. If you're doing an atomic bomb build, obviously it'd be super useful. But overall, you're not going to be taking this very often. You're just not. So honestly, this is another C tier one for me. I'll put this one at the top of C. But it's just not, it's so specific for so specific builds, and it's not even pivotal to those builds. So it's just not really worth it, in my opinion. Next up, we have Eye of Providence, which is vaults and peculiar chests are visible on the minimap, and you will be able to acquire 1 extra peculiar chest every act. Yeah. The soonest you can use this is when you get to Reincarnation 1, the difficulty. And by then, you probably have a decent idea where most of these chests spawn. So being able to see them on the minimap is actually pointless. Not to mention, you get an extra one every act. It's not bad getting an extra one every act, but usually peculiar chests aren't like the greatest thing ever. Like, they're not providing you with the most insane bonuses, so it's, especially for 90 spiritual essence, this just is not it. It's just not. It's not good at all. It's a complete waste of spiritual essence, in my opinion. So D tier for that one. Next up, we have Fake Death. Upon taking lethal damage, you will not be downed immediately, but enter the Fake Death phase. Killing an enemy will end the Fake Death, and you will be invincible for 3 seconds, and this has a cooldown of 45 seconds. So you do have to kill an enemy before Fake Death timer runs out, or you will be screwed. But this basically gives you an extra life every 45 seconds. I don't know what else I really need to say about it. This is probably the only one, I don't know for sure, that's going to go into S tier. That's not, you don't build around this. But once again, an extra life every 45 seconds. Are you serious? That's ridiculous. So we're going to go into S tier for that one. I mean, I don't need to explain why that's so good. I don't think so. There it is. Next up on our list, we have Field Proficiency. Gain 10% lucky shot chance and minus 6% dash/primary skill cooldown for every elite or boss killed or assisted on killing during the entire run. You can get up to a maximum of 10 stacks. another one that's kind of like, why would you ever take this when there are so many other good options? The fact that it caps you out at 10 stacks, I feel like is kind of ridiculous. So at max, you're getting a 100% lucky shot chance buff and minus 60% cooldown for your dash and primary skill, which is good. And I mean, if you're doing a primary skill build, I mean, if, you know, dual wield on the dog or an elemental orb build on the cat. I mean, there's a lot of places when the cooldown for your primary skill is good, but I mean, there are just so many other options that I feel like are just better. So I'm going to be honest, we got another C tier here. I'm going to put it, I'm probably going to put, probably like, yeah, probably there, I think. Once again, it has some decent buffs, but overall, it's just not good enough. Not good enough to go up, I don't think. So anyway, next up, Jackpot. Get plus 2,000 copper immediately, and then plus 50% to all copper gained. So this one is another one that's kind of specific for some builds, but in general, it's decent because getting plus 50% of all copper gained for the entire run means you're going to have a much better chance of getting things you want at the peddler. You're going to have a much better chance of maximizing your upgrades on the weapon, on your whatever weapon you're using. Any peculiar chests that have you pay for stuff, you're going to be able to pay for it without any sort of, you know, having to worry about it. Reforging for Geminis. There's a lot of good things that money can get you. And this isn't going to be something like you're super excited and jumping out of your seat to see, but you're also probably not going to be disappointed if you take this, in my opinion. So I'm going to go B for Jackpot. I think it's good, not great, but overall, not too shabby, if we're being all things considered. Next up, we've got Occult Booster, which is a 20% chance for any scroll to become their enhanced version when offered by a chest/dropped rewards. Yeah, so Occult Booster is fantastic. 20% might not seem like a lot, but given, you know, the peddlers, given all the scrolls that drop from elites, from bosses, you're going to see theoretically a few of these every act, every stage. And enhanced versions of scrolls typically are just ridiculous. I mean, they're just phenomenal. Like game-changing, run-changing scrolls. So Occult Booster is really good. It's another example of one that I think it's not going to be, you know, like you're not building around this, but you are hopefully getting a lot of use out of it. It is RNG dependent, which is why I'm not going to put it in A tier, but I am going to put it in B tier, and I'm going to put it definitely above Jackpot. It is really, really good, and when you get a lot of good use out of it, it's super fun. So next up, Overconsumption. Plus 300% weapon and skill damage, minus 50% cooldown for your abilities, plus 50% movement speed, plus 50% max health and max shield/armor. And then for every legendary, rare, normal, and occult scroll, you lose those percentages of the total bonus mentioned above. So Overconsumption used to be one that you would only be able to take early to get benefits out of, but now you can still get benefits from this for essentially the entire run. I mean, in order to lose all of your weapon and skill damage, you would have to have 100 legendary scrolls, which is not going to happen, obviously. So you can still get bonuses for the entirety of this run with this scroll. This new version of it is super good. Like I said, it's just a passive thing that happens. You just get all of these buffs. And yes, it gets worse over time, but compared to its previous version, it's significantly better. It is going to go up at the top of B tier. I don't think it can go into A because, like I said, it gets worse as time goes on, but it's still a really, really good Remnant to pick up and take early and let the benefit, like, especially with the new extra hard stage 4 difficulty, where you can replace one of your remnants with a new one at that last peddler or mushroom man. it's definitely worth taking early, and then worst case scenario, you just replace it at the end. So I think it's great. Next up, we have Painkiller. Obtain a random elemental effect upon dealing damage, and convert all negative elemental effects applied to the hero to bonus with the opposite effects. So burning will heal you, shock will reduce your damage taken, and decay will increase your movement speed. So yeah, this Painkiller is really good. If you're doing like an elemental build, super useful. It used to be even better, but now that you obtain a random elemental effect just when you deal damage is great. At high difficulties, there's a lot of enemies that'll deal elemental effects. A lot of fiery or corrosive or lightning enemies. And instead of taking negative effects, getting all of those just converted to benefits for you, I mean, it's really, really, really useful. So, Painkiller for me is another one that's probably going to be in B tier, because you're not... Well, actually, no, I'm going to put this in A tier. I don't think it's as good as Copycat, but especially, like I said, on higher difficulties, which is where I play most of the time, I mean, you're under elemental effect constantly. And you don't even need to be under elemental effect anymore, because all you have to do is deal damage to an enemy, and you'll obtain a random elemental effect on you. So being able to just negate negative elemental effects is too good to not have up at A tier, I think. It's just so useful. Next up on our list, we've got Royal Guard. So this guarantees elite monster at the end of a pre-boss stage. This is D tier and worse than this, because at least this gives you peculiar chests at the end of every act. This, if you're playing on Reincarnation 8, this is already pretty much guaranteed. So there's really no reason. I mean, I just don't think it's very good. That's my personal opinion. I would never, ever use this. Like I said, at Reincarnation 8, at the end of a pre-boss stage, I'm already getting guaranteed elites with the challenge. So yeah, no need to talk about that one anymore. It's just not for me, for sure. Next up, we've got Skill Freak. There is a 75% chance for a secondary skill to deal 200% damage, and a 25% chance for a secondary skill to deal 300% damage. This one's going to go into the very top of B tier. The only reason I can't put it into A is because it's only the secondary skill, so this does not affect primary skill. But having a chance for your secondary skill to do 300% damage, triple damage, is ridiculous. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's super good. If you're doing a secondary skill build, this is this is a pivotal part of some builds, so I am going to put it in A, actually, because it is super important for those builds. I mean, the chance to triple is just unreal, and 1 out of every 4 times it's tripling. It's super good. Next up on our list, we have what the hell is this one? Oh, Steady Profit. You can purchase 2 enhanced occult scrolls from the Phantom Peddler, and then merch in the Phantom Peddler can be refreshed an additional time. This one is interesting because, like I said, enhanced scrolls are phenomenal, and being able to buy 2 per Phantom Peddler is super, super useful. But this just doesn't really hold a torch to some of the other options. Like, you're just going to get less out of this than a lot of other things on this list. Enhanced scrolls are great, but you only get to see a maximum of 3 at the Phantom Peddler. And there's a lot of enhanced scrolls, and to find the one you're looking for, it gives you a better chance, but you're still not super likely to find it. So I'm going to put this at the top of C. I could maybe squeeze it into B, but I think it's the top of C. I don't know. It's just not, like I said, you'd have to get really lucky for this to be a scroll worth like an A tier. It could be, but most of the time it's not going to be. Next up, we have Supreme Craftsman. You can reroll all inscriptions of a weapon at the Craftsman, and the Craftsman can reroll each weapon up to 3 times. rerolls cost 0 money. Yeah, so this one's really good. Once again, if you're doing a weapon build, this is a really useful one because you can reroll until you perfect. You can try to perfect your inscriptions. You can't do this infinitely. You get to do it 3 times. But 3 rerolls on a weapon inscription, you're going to find hopefully some set that works for you. That's super useful. It's super good. It's not a run-defining thing. You're not building around it, but you can get a good bit of use out of this. Even if you're not doing a weapon build, it's still pretty good to have. So I think I'm going to put this one at the bottom of B tier for our friend Supreme Craftsman. Next up, we have Ultimate Firearm. There is a 75% chance to drop an enhanced weapon. This one is just not nearly. It's a much higher percentage than like its scroll counterpart, Occult Scroll Booster. But enhanced weapons just don't have the same effect as enhanced scrolls. They're just not on the same level. And this one does not affect weapons from the peddler. It only affects weapon drops. I mean, I'm going to put this one probably right in the middle of C. I think Endless Assault probably has more uses. It's just not, I mean, the odds of you finding a weapon that you want to use that's enhanced in the right way, it's just unlikely. Whereas enhanced scrolls, most of the enhanced scrolls are probably going to affect your run in a positive way. Whereas the weapon, you might not find the right weapon you need. You might not, maybe you get the wrong type of buff. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's worth ever taking, especially compared to a lot of the other options. Last, but certainly not least, we have Ultimate Gambler. You can refresh all available Ascensions once per goblet. This is S tier. This is higher than Fake Death. It has to be, because so many runs are built around your Ascensions, and being able to re-roll to make sure you get the right Ascensions is how you min-max runs to their maximum potential. I don't know if you guys have seen, if you go and look at the video I did last week where I did over 18 billion damage in a single shot, or 18 million damage in a single shot, and over 1.5 billion total damage in a run. It was because we got every Ascension necessary, like the perfect set of Ascensions, thanks to Ultimate Gambler. Now, it's not going to happen every time, but you are going to have much better Ascensions for your run and for your build than if you don't take this. I take Ultimate Gambler's probably my most taken Remnant out of all of them. So it's S tier. It's just so goddamn good. So yeah, that's why we are putting it into that category. Next, we get to the exclusives here. And for the exclusives, we are going to go in order of character. So we're going to go through each character's in order here, not in order from what we're looking at. Anyway, Splinter Orb is the first one. These are going to be the Cat's exclusive inscriptions. First up is Splinter Orb. So when casting Energy Orb, an additional Energy Orb will be launched to the left and to the right of the main one at the same time. -1 second Energy Orb cooldown for every enemy hit by an Energy Orb. So the Energy Orb build, the E build on the Cat, is definitely viable. I don't think it's nearly as good as the Elemental build by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a viable build, and this is a very good part of that build. Being able to fully just chain spam orbs. You get Elemental, the Elemental Ascension that turns it into an Elemental Orb. I mean, there's a lot of good things you can do with it, but I don't like that build nearly as much as the Elemental build, so I'm going to stick this right in the middle of B tier. I think you'd get more use out of Enhanced Scrolls or Overconsumption, but obviously if this is your build that you're going for, it's very useful, but just in general, just middle of B, I think is where it's going to go. Next up, we have Elemental Orb. This one's Elemental Orb. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait. This is Splinter Orb. Hold on. Yeah, because this one, okay. These two look so similar. This one is Elemental Maestro. So you gain a buff for 4 seconds every 10 seconds. Grants plus 100% elemental damage and guarantees elemental effects with the buff. S tier. This is one of the best ones in the game, in my opinion, because the elemental build is probably the most consistent for winning runs, I think. I mean, it's just so good. It's ridiculously good. So middle of S tier. But not just that, like being able to guarantee the elemental effect and get a massive damage buff for your elemental effects, it's ridiculous. It's so good. It's such a good build, such a good remnant to build around. It's fantastic. S tier for Elemental Maestro. Next up, we have Elemental Orb, which is dealing weapon damage will create an Elemental Orb every 3 seconds. This type of elemental damage, Elemental Orb changes when we reload. And then minus 0.1 second cooldown for Elemental Orb and plus 5% elemental damage for 10 seconds when you defeat a normal enemy affected by elemental effect or inflicting elemental effect on an elite/boss monster up to 25 stacks. So just a little extra cooldown and extra damage either when you're killing a normal enemy or dealing elemental damage to elites. This works really, really well as a complementary piece to Elemental Maestro. I don't think it's as good, but it works extremely well as an extra part of that elemental build. And I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. We all love the elemental balls. This is just the elemental balls, but guaranteed. So it's super, super useful. And like I said, a great complementary piece to Elemental Maestro. It's not up there in S tier, but damn, it is good. And then last on the cat, we've got Smog Bound Zone, which is plus 40% smoke grenade effective range and plus 5 second duration to your smoke grenades. And then minus 20% damage taken when you or your teammate is in the area of a smoke grenade. So this is good because it has damage reduction. However, it's selective damage reduction because you have to be in the smoke grenade. That being said, the smoke grenade range is ginormous. But in general, this isn't going to be... Every other cat one is like you can use this for an orb build. You can use these for elemental builds. This one is just kind of extra. You're not really using it in a build specifically, and it's not really necessary. I'm going to put it at the top of C. I mean, it is good, but selective damage reduction and the extra benefit of an additional 5 seconds is great, but it's not of paramount importance to any of your runs. So that's why I'm going to put Smog Bound Zone at the top of C. Next up, we have the Dogs exclusive inscriptions, and first and foremost, we have Atomic Bomb. So if you don't know what this is, we'll read it, but you've probably been living under a rock or are new to the game. When using a secondary skill, there's a 40% chance to toss all of your remaining grenades without consuming uses, plus 50% explosive grenade damage for 1 second every time the grenade deals damage, up to 1,000%. So you have a chance to just huck all of your grenades at once, and every time it hits an enemy, it deals increasing damage up to 1,000% extra damage as it stacks. Yeah, so I mean, this is just bar none the highest damaging, highest potential remnant in the entirety of the game. I don't know what to say. You just break the game when you take this. Assuming you build for explosive, assuming you get lucky, maybe this is where you maybe take Endless Assault to double your secondary skill uses, and then you get Endless Assault, and then you get double Exhilaration, so you double again. I mean, I tell you what, Atomic Bomb builds are just absolutely downright ridiculous. So that's why it's going into S tier, top of S tier, mind you. I don't know if anything's going to beat it, but it is a tough remnant to beat in terms of just pure power and usefulness for winning runs. So top of the S tier for Atomic Bomb. Next up, we have Battle Scarred. Plus 5% health per second, and minus 1% damage taken for every 2% health you have, which is a little bit confusing-ish. But this is basically, if you're at max health, this is a 50% damage reduction. And then you also have 5% health per second bonus. I've talked about how damage reduction is super useful. And the dog is obviously the one character that's much prefers, like, flesh and bones to paranormality. Like, he just has a lot better things to help with his health being high versus his shield. So getting extra health per second is really nice as well. But this isn't really something that, like, you're going to be jumping for joy when you see it. You're going to be twisting and turning in your seat trying to get life power or battle scarred. It's useful. It is guaranteed damage reduction, so it is better, I think, than this. But I don't think I can quite put it on the B tier. I'm going to put battle scarred into the C tier. Dog does have issues with survivability, but I don't think this just isn't not the way to do it, I don't think. I think there's better options, like maybe just take Fake Death or Copycat, which will help a lot. Anyway, next on our list is Life Power, which is plus 2% weapon damage for every 1 HP restored, and then minus 2% weapon damage for every 1 HP lost. The bonus will not be affected, or the bonus is affected by your max health and will not drop below 0. So if you don't have any weapon damage bonuses and you take damage, you're not going to go into the negatives. But if you're restoring HP, you're gaining damage. I don't know what to tell you about this one. It's just not the it's not great. This is probably I think the worst one on the dog, so I'm going to put it probably here. Honestly, I just don't think it's a very good one at all. So there it is, C. Bottom of C tier for this guy. Next up, we've got One Dog Army, which is when not dual wielding, you get plus 150% weapon and skill damage, minus 20% damage taken, and plus 3% health per second recovery. Yeah, this is a really, really good one. This is a much better version of, I mean, it's not as much health recovery, but the main build per se, like the best build on the dog is Atomic Bomb, which means you don't have to dual wield, and you just get a 150% skill damage buff for your explosives, which is phenomenal. And you get reduced damage taken and health recovery, so it's offensive, it's defensive. This covers all of your bases. This is an A tier scroll. I'm going to keep it right there. Yeah. It's not Skill Freak's just too good. Painkiller and Copycat are just too good, but this is a really, really good exclusive Remnant for the dog. So it's going to go into A tier. Next up, we have Weapon Genius, which is minus 50% dual wield cooldown, plus 75% lucky shot chance, and weapons 1 and 2 share their highest weapon level while dual wielding. So this is really, really good for if you're doing a dual wield build, which I would say is the second best build on the dog, and one people do a lot. This is a really, really good Remnant. You're going to be able to spam your dual wield more often. The lucky shot chance is insane when dual wielding. Your damage output goes through the roof. And you only have to upgrade one weapon because they will share their weapon level. So this has to go. Oh, this is interesting. I think it's an A tier. The question is, I think overall, for their respective builds, One Dog Army is better for Atomic Bomb than Weapon Genius is for dual wield. Well, actually, no. Here, let me tell you why. Atomic Bomb does not need One Dog Army. Atomic Bomb is going to be ridiculous regardless of if it has One Dog Army or not. Whereas a dual wield build, this exponentially increases how good it is. So I actually think this is better for its respective build compared to One Dog Army. So I'm going to bump it up a little bit and put it there. So there we go. Those are all of the dogs, exclusive remnants. Next up, we get to the bird, which just had one change to one of its remnants. But anyway, first one here is Bladed Cleave. Cleave instantly kills normal and elite monsters with 25% health or less, and then bosses that have 15% health or less. You also get plus 30% cleave damage for every remaining charge of cleave. So instant kill is great. The instant kill is super nice, but that's like the only part of this that's really useful. I mean, the 30% cleave damage bonus, you're probably not going to be doing a ton of cleave damage anyway. But I will say, once again, it is very useful for being able to just instantly kill a boss or an elite that's giving you issues that's at not close to being dead yet. So it has its uses, but in general, I mean, even if you're doing a cleave builds just aren't super viable, especially at high difficulties, but it can instant kill. You can never really look past instant kill, so I'm going to put it at B. B for Bladed Cleave. Next up, we have Double Tap. Upon hitting an enemy with the weapon, deal damage based on the weapon's base damage and projectile count, including bonuses applied to the triggering hit. So we'll read, this one's a little bit confusing, so we'll read the part on the right. Hitting an enemy causes an entire shot's worth of damage. Damage times projectiles in the weapon stats to hit the target, further boosted by any bonuses that apply to the triggering hit, such as lucky shots or crits. So yeah, high projectile weapons are super useful for this. It's really good. Say you've got, Illusion is obviously a good example of one. Anyway, there's a lot of the Argus. It is pretty solid here. Once again, it's not one you're going to be building around for an entire build, most likely, but it does have a lot of uses. I do think it has a lot more uses than Bladed Cleave. I don't, however, think it has more uses than Splinter Orb. Maybe it does, actually. Yeah, it's actually probably slightly more useful than Splinter Orb. So we're going to put it in the upper echelon of the B tiers here. Next up, we have Oppressor, and this one's going to be really hard for me to rank because it just changed. If you watched the video yesterday, which was the patch notes video, you'll know that it just changed. So, yeah. Anyways, restoring or losing health within the last 10 seconds increases your max armor by the same amount of health change. And then restoring or losing armor within the last 10 seconds increases weapon damage and skill damage by the same percentage of armor change. So, I think this has a couple of good uses on paper. You know, all or nothing will get you 100% weapon and skill damage buff. Restoring and losing health gives you more armor, which can affect the damage of like your leap if you're doing a leap build, which I think is the best build for the bird. Theoretically, I think this is pretty good, but I have not used it, and I haven't had a chance to see it used. It's just so new. So this one's really hard for me to rank. So I'm just going to put it B tier ahead of Bladed Cleave. I'll put it like right here. It seems like it would be really good and useful. I just don't know, really. So just slap it in the middle and call it Sally. Next up, last one for the bird here is Unstoppable Momentum. For each enemy hit by a leap, plus 100% of your next leap base damage, and gain a 5% chance to reset the cooldown. Up to 10 stacks. You only lose stacks if you miss your E ability. So, this is up to a 1000% leap damage bonus and a guaranteed cooldown, or 50% chance to reset the cooldown when you use it. This was the one that I said was pivotal for the bird's best build. It's really, really, really good, and it can help you spam leap, deal a ton of damage. It's going into A tier. Bottom of A tier for sure, but it is an A tier remnant. It is so useful on the bird. It's ridiculous. Just ridiculous. So S tier, there it goes. And that's it for all the ones on the bird. Next up, we move to the Tiger. Actually, these nice blue ones here. First up, we have Gradual Improvement. So you gain 1 stack of Gradual Improvement for every crit, while reducing 1 stack for every non-crit. Each stack adds up to 0.3 crit multiplier, and it can go up to 30 stacks. So if you're using a sniper, a high-impact, slow-firing weapon that crits, or that you're trying to crit as often as possible, this is pretty useful. The crit multiplier can get pretty insane. So if you can get this to max health or max stacks, and if you're confident in your, ability to be hitting those crits, then this is a really, really good one that can, like I said, it said it on the right when we were looking at it, but it can go up to a 9 times crit multiplier, which is absolutely bananas. So we're going to put this one upper echelon of B tier. Most of the time on the Tiger, you're probably going to be using a weapon that's, pretty good at critting. So I think B tier upper B tier for this one. Next up, we have, this one is High Powered Arc. Plus 3 bounces for Chain Lightning, plus 100% bouncing range, and plus 150% Chain Lightning base damage for each increase to the maximum bounces of Chain Lightning. So this one will help your Q get a lot of damage output. Q builds, at least from what I understand, I don't play a lot of Tiger, but they're viable, but you have to get a lot of things to go right. Like, you have to get pretty lucky. And it's not the go-to build for a lot of people. So this is really good, but for a build that's not used quite as often. So I'm going to put this lower B tier. I think it's not going to go up just because the Q build is just less used compared to a lot of the other builds on the Tiger. So lower B tier for that one. Next up, we've got Lightning Messenger. After dealing a crit hit, you inflict shock on the inflicted enemy and all enemies within 3 meters. When they low attacks an enemy affected by shock, increase weapon and skill damage by 100%. So once again, assuming you're critting, you're going to be inflicting the shock to a bunch of enemies around you, and you deal increased damage to enemies who are under shock effects, plus Laylo has a lot of other good synergies with enemies that are shocked. This is a really, really good one. Like I said, with Gradual Improvement, you're going to be theoretically using a weapon that is critting a lot of the time. So I'm going to put it up here. I think it's actually better than Gradual Improvement. The spreading elemental damage is super nice. So we're going to put it right above Gradual Improvement. And last for the Tiger is Thunder and Glory. Minus 50% fatal current cooldown for every enemy hit by a Thunderbolt, plus 40% base damage for the next one for 10 seconds. This can go up to 30 stacks. Now, it only lasts 10 seconds, so you're probably not getting max bonus. I mean, you will occasionally, especially with the fatal current cooldown. So actually, theoretically, you could have up to 30 stacks pretty often, which is a huge damage increase. And not only is it a huge damage increase, but like, this is the build that most people would go to, is the E and just dealing a ton of damage with one shot. And this can increase that damage tenfold. So Thunder and Glory, I think, is the best exclusive. They're all pretty good, but I think this one deserves to be up in the A tiers and probably ahead of One Dog Army and probably ahead of the dual wield one. So there we have it for the remnants on the Tiger. Next up, we get to the Bunny. The Bunny, which are these like purple ones here. First up, we've got Blossom Enthusiast, which is interesting now because that got a slight change as well. Hitting an enemy with will mark them with Fatal Bloom, and minus 6 hits triggered or required to trigger Fatal Bloom additional damage. It used to be minus 8 hits required. Now it's minus 6, so it takes more hits to trigger the extra damage. I mean, yeah, it's a nerf, but it's not. I mean, you're not going to be able to min-max as high but it's still going to deal so much damage, and I think is the second best Remnant right behind Atomic Bomb in terms of just sheer damage output that you get throughout a run. I mean, this is so good. And if you haven't done a Blossom Enthusiast Fatal Bloom run, please try it. It's ridiculous, and you'll have so much fun. It's a fantastic Remnant. There's not much else to say about it. Next up, we have Iceblade. Flying swords deal additional 10% of enemies' current health as true damage for elites and bosses. It goes up to 5,000 times the number of players in your squad at most per hit. Yeah, so this is really good for an E build. Now, E builds are not as good as Q builds, in my opinion. They're still very viable, but this is super good for them. However, it's not like as pivotal as Blossom Enthusiast is. I think this is like a lower A tier, maybe upper B, but I'm going to put it lower. Well, no, I'm going to put it upper B, actually. I'm going to put it at the top of B tier. It's really, really good. It's just E builds aren't as good as the Q, and this isn't as important as like Blossom Enthusiast is. So top of B tier for Iceblades. Also, since the damage is capped at 5k, that also is part of the reason. Next up, wait, no, Iceblades is this one. Hello. This one is sword mastery, plus 50% rate of fire while using swords out, and you can stack Blade Heart even when swords out is on cooldown. The first part of that, the rate of fire while using it, not that great, but being able to stack while your swords are on cooldown is great. But this is another scenario where it's pretty good for your E build, but E builds aren't as important, so it's less good. But I do think it's actually better than Iceblade, because being able to stack while your swords are recharging means as soon as your E is back up, you're probably at max stacks, and you can just use it off of cooldown every single time, which if you're doing an E build is obviously quite important. So we'll put it above Iceblade, but still not quite into A tier. And then last one on the bunny, but certainly not least, is Thorny Bloom. For every Fatal Bloom you gained, plus 40% Fatal Bloom base damage for 30 seconds, and then this go up to 30 stacks, and you deal one more skill damage to the enemy when the mark of Fatal Bloom vanishes. So it'll deal an additional tick of your Fatal Bloom damage at the end. You get increased Fatal Bloom base damage. Once again, this goes up to 30 stacks. So it can be kind of ridiculous how much damage you can get from this. Up to 1,200% base damage. This is really, 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 really good for a Q build. It's not as good as Blossom Enthusiast, I don't think, but it is so goddamn useful, and the amount of damage, like I said, that you can get is insane. So I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. Not quite S tier, but definitely the top of A tier for Thorny Bloom. Next up, we've got the Hedgehog, or the Turtle, for my less cultured viewers. But Hedgehog, let's get into it, shall we? First one here is Backfire. It reflects significant AoE damage back to all enemies within 10 meters upon taking damage or hitting an enemy with your hurdle. Yeah, it's not great. At one point I tried to do a run where I did nothing but deflecting damage, and it just didn't get the job done. It's not terrible, but it's not, the AoE damage isn't, it says significant AoE damage, but from what I remember using it, it was not enough to be like viable on upper reincarnation levels. So I'm going to put this at the top of C. I just don't think it's that great of a Remnant, if we're being honest. So upper C, there it goes. Next up, we have Dominating Fists. The stacks of fist sensation will not drop below 20. I talked about this in my best builds video not that long ago, but this is the best Remnant on the Hedgehog, in my opinion, and if you're doing the punchy punch build, it is unbelievably useful. So I'm going to put this, it can't go above Elemental Maestro, I don't think. But I think it deserves S tier because it is the highlight remnant of the entirety of this character. It's like the front and center billboard remnant. It's really, really, really good. And if you want to know a little bit more specifically why it is so good, like why does it matter if the fist sensation stacks aren't dropping below 20? Like that's all this does. Then check out my best builds video where I went into more detail about it, but it is insane. Next, we have Libra Warrior. So fist sensation grants extra weapon damage, which is equivalent to 100% of the bonuses to striking punch. So now not only is your punch getting buffed by your stacks of fist sensation, but your weapon is getting buffed. Most of the time when I play the Hedgehog, I'm not even using a weapon. I'm just punching the hell out of everything, like 90% of the time. So for me, this isn't that great, but in general, it is a pretty decent upgrade. Being able to get solid weapon buffs is really good. I'm going to put it right below Occult Booster. But it's just that it's right there. Right there it is where it is. I just don't use it super often because, like I said, I usually forget about my weapon by the halfway point of the run with this character. Last one, we've got Tsunami Punch. You get +2 Tidal Aspis charges, and then when you retract the Aspis, you cause weapon damage once, and plus 300% damage from Aspis retraction. This one's another one that's just not great. It's not bad. I mean, getting additional, shields is nice, and additional damage when you retract it is nice, but that's all it is just nice. I'm going to put this at the top of C tier. Once again, in order to get onto B, it has to be either just slightly worse or better than Bladed Cleave, which can instantly kill a boss that's at 15% health, or elites that are at 25%. And it just can't, it's not better than that. So that's why we're going to keep it at the top of C tier. Next, we go to the Monkeys exclusive remnants. And the first one we have here is Dimensional Strike, which actually just got changed as well, very slightly, but still got changed. So you get +2 Soul Strike uses and +30% weapon damage for every hit performed by your E, and then go up to 10 stacks, and it resets if you get hit. So at max stacks, you get +300% weapon damage. It's really good if you're doing an E build. I don't think the E build is as good as the Q build, but you want to be able to spam your E as much as possible if you're doing the E build. Now, the E build and Q build are pretty close, but in general, I think... where do I want to put this? I think Dimensional Strike... I think I'll put it right in there in B tier. The new changes to it were really nice. Getting an additional Soul Strike use is super useful. But once again, it just doesn't make a big enough effect to put it into A tier, I don't think, on the runs. I mean, you're still going to have a great E run without it. So, yeah. Next up, we have Essence Drainer. +1 extra temporary weapon level for every enemy affected by your Q. For every weapon level of your current weapon, plus 40% Essence Chain damage. This one is one that is, if you're doing a Q build, it is pivotal. Now, I don't think it's as necessary as like a lot of these up here are, so I'm actually going to put this at the top of A. But being able to get extra weapon levels for every enemy affected by your Q means you can get an extra 5, 6, possibly even 7 weapon levels per use, and that is insane and super, super good. Although now that I think it's just not quite as good as Thorny Bloom, but it is really good. And if you're doing a Q build, you are going to want to have Essence Drainer as part of it for sure. And then next up, we have Weapon Mastery. So plus 200% total bonus from Assaulter, Generalist, and Breacher talents. And then both weapons equipped share their bonuses. So we'll go through this little section on the right here because a lot of people were confused by this. So this triples the power of the Assaulter, Generalist, and Breacher talents. So rifles, plus 75% weapon damage. Submachine guns, plus 75% mag capacity. Pistol, plus 300% projectile speed. Shotguns, plus 75% projectiles. Snipers, plus 0.75 crit multiplier. Launchers, minus 75% reload time. Injectors, plus 75% lucky shot chance. And melee weapons, plus 75% movement speed. So, if you're using a rifle and an SMG, you get plus 75% weapon damage and plus 75% mag capacity. If you're using a shotgun and a launcher, you get plus 75% projectiles and minus 75% reload time for both. That's what this weapon means. And as you can see at the bottom, 2 of the same weapons will not double up on these bonuses. So, it's really, really good for a Q build once again. I don't think it's as good as Essence Drainer, but this is something that is super useful, and you can make some fun little combos depending on what your secondary, like your primary and your secondary weapon are, what types they are. This is A tier. I think it's going to go right there for A tier. It's really, really fun and useful, and you get a lot of cool bonuses for your weapons based off of what you pick. So, yeah, I think it's a really good one. Last, but definitely not least, we've got the Firefox, and she's got her 3 exclusives here. So let's go through the first one, which is Cataclysm. Plus 1% damage of your Blazing Meteor for every 1 energy stored. When casting Blazing Meteor at a target, you cast it on all enemies within 8 meters. You can do that once every 4 seconds. And every remaining Blazing Meteor use will reduce your cooldown by up to 3 seconds. So, if you are doing a Q build, Meteor build, this is paramount to have because you cast it on every enemy within a close area. So turning your Q into a massive AoE is so useful. The Q build's not as good as the E build, in my opinion, but it is a very, very, very viable build. And because of that, Cataclysm still deserves to be an A tier, I think. It is just insanely good when you are running that Q. And you get bonuses for how much energy you have. So if you get like Energetic Spirit maxed up, you get a ton of extra damage bonus as well. Next up, we've got Flame Dance, plus 30% weapon damage and plus 5% enemy damage taken when you inflict burn on an enemy. It can go up to 10 stacks. At maximum stacks, it's 300% weapon damage and 50%. Just the enemy just takes 50% extra damage. Flame Dance, not great. You're not going to want to take this. There are a lot better options when you're running the Fox for damage output. So, yeah, this one just does not get the job done. And frankly, there's not really a reason to take this 99% of the time because of the other options. And honestly, I mean, I'm looking at these. All of these, I think, actually have more usefulness than Flame Dance has. I'm going to put this at the top of D tier. It's just not... I mean... Fuck. Maybe it's better than a Good Man. I don't think it's better than Life Power, though, honestly. Maybe that means I want to move this down. Yeah, fuck it, actually. I'll move this down. And this... We'll just flip-flop those. Yeah. Okay. So, there we go. C tier. Bottom of C tier for that one. And then last, we have Raging Inferno. Plus 15% base damage of your Spiritual Flame for every enemy hit by it. You lose 10 stacks of this when missed, but it can go up to 30 stacks. You also recover 1 energy for every 2 meters moved. So at maximum stacks, it's 450% base damage for your E. Your E build is really good, but this isn't the biggest effect, like bonus damage you can get. 450% is nothing to shake a stick at, but it does not get it into S tier at all. I'll put it up near the top. I don't think it's better than Thorny Bloom. It is really good, but 99% of the Fox's power comes from her Ascensions because her Ascensions are so good. So these Remnants are great, but they're not like these up here are just unbelievably useful for their specific build or specific character or just in general like Ultimate Gambler and Fake Death. So there we have it, everybody. We've got ourselves the tier list of champions here for Remnants. Relatively even, honestly. We've got B, which is kind of like the middle tier here. And we've got a good chunk above and below. So it's relatively balanced out, I'd say. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of thoughts on some of these, but I'm interested to hear them. Like I said, be sure you check those links in the description. And remember, I will be streaming live on Twitch and YouTube this week, assuming everything works correctly. So come check me out on either platform. I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to be basing what I do going forward off of this test this next week. So come be a part of history. Regardless, thank you guys so much for the support as always. Hopefully you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I love each and every one of your faces, and I will catch you all in the next video.